Hello and welcome to another episode of What's Good Mzansi. I hope everybody's doing well on this Wednesday afternoon. We've been talking to a lot of different business minds and entrepreneurs and guys all in the business space. I think it's quite critical that we start to flesh this out and discuss as much as we can during this time. Just to see what guys are doing across different disciplines and what the thinking is, what the feeling is on the ground, what sort of planning we're doing. So today I'm joined by a champion of a guy. Bulelani, how you doing, my brother? You well?
I'm good, but how are you, man?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. All things considering, eh? What have you been up to?
I mean, sure. I think my whole entire schedule has been disrupted.
Yeah.
I think the first couple of days of the lockdown, I think one has been easing into it, trying to find a balance.
Yeah.
It's been a bit difficult because I think as an entrepreneur, there's been some projects that we've been working on that have obviously been halted. There's a big portion of our work is one-on-one interactions.
Yeah.
And that has then had to change.
Yeah.
And I think the big disruption there is being pushed to find innovative ways to adapt and coming up with solutions to be sustainable in this time so that you're able to generate an income for you and some of your team, because I mean, we're in a situation where some of our team is I think temporarily put off as per the lockdown, up until things get back on track, and we're trying to run as much as we can.
Yeah.
But with that all being said, we push.
Do me a favor, just give our viewers a little bit of an understanding in terms of what T.E.A is, what you guys have been busy with, prior to this whole thing happening.
Yeah. So I ran an organization called Township Entrepreneurs Alliance, popularly known as T, or rather join us for T, and it's a national footprint of township and rural entrepreneurs. We basically go out into the township and rural communities and we share information, we network entrepreneurs, we create market access solutions, and really we just train and educate entrepreneurs across the country. So T in itself has been operating for the past 5 years. Like I said, it's got a national footprint, so we're in about 60 townships across the country. We workshop about between 7,000 to 10,000 township and rural entrepreneurs for free. And I think out of that, we've then started to develop data to speak to solutions for the township. And I think that's primarily what we're doing now with this situation, to try and come up with an analysis of what is the impact of COVID-19 and what are some of the solutions that one could bring into the immediate, because we know that it's not going to end anytime soon. So I think in a nutshell, that's what we do. That's T. Join us for T. In a nutshell. There's a bit more, but yeah.
So listen, I don't think the formalized economy really has an idea of the sort of stuff that's happening at a business level in the townships. Can you just give us a little bit of insight into that? Because I mean, there's a thriving business economy happening inside of these areas, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's an extremely thriving economy. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of participation. The big part of it has always been the cloud that has always hung over it, which is the unknown figures, the unknown numbers, which still remains as a true factor. But I mean, I think just to ease into this particular question, one of the biggest things that I always dispel, or rather that I always get questioned, is why still call it township entrepreneurs? Why is the focus still township entrepreneurs? Why not just entrepreneurship? And just to share a couple of answers which will aid into the question that I just got from you now. Think about it this way. Being a township entrepreneur, I mean, I've been a township entrepreneur now for the past 15 years. And the struggle is not the same. I'll make you an example. We operate now 420 square meter office and production space in the township, right? over the past 15 years, we've had to change internet service providers about 6 to 7 times, moving from one provider to the other, purely because of service and coverage. We've had to change courier companies about 4 times. We still don't have a courier company that is servicing us. And we've got credits with some of the ones that have dropped us purely because we're the only ones in that space. If I, as a township entrepreneur, want to hire a talent, the talent would rather go to an XYZ name brand in town or in the suburbs or whatsoever, even though they're getting half of whatever it is that I'll be paying them, purely because there's a credibility element. And the truth about it at the end of the day is that you then find a township entrepreneur or a young individual who wants to venture out into running their own business, going out there as a professional, struggling because they then have to then climb or get on 3 or 4 taxis to access hubs of economic development, or rather known as incubation spaces or workspaces where other like-minded people are. And that becomes a problem because when you look at, for instance, your Sandton radius, and I'll talk about Joburg for a bit, if I throw you anywhere in Sandton within a 30-kilometer radius, you'll probably find 5 to about 6 incubators or facilities where you can utilize a shared office, working space, incubation and training and workshopping, but it's not the case in the township. Now, when you have an economic play which is positioned in that way, you will then have the biggest challenges that you're seeing now, which is the non-inclusion of that informal economy, well, formal and also part informal economy. And the biggest challenge has always been that the solutions that are being driven to support this economy have always, majority of them don't work to the benefit of this economy, and they actually work against it because one is not working to understand what this economy is all about. Now, the system in itself that has been created, which is the prevalence system, has always in the past has always worked to discriminate, and discriminating is not a bad factor, but it's a crippling factor to a lot of small businesses when you don't understand the historic impact of how they got to where they are, and how do you drive them getting to the next level. And I think just to close this question up, but I'll throw this one in. Some of the work that we do encapsulates working with corporates in finding and selecting entrepreneurs to either come on to enterprise development programs, competition challenges, supply development programs, and they need to meet a certain criteria. And the biggest thing that we've always picked up is you can't just purely go on face value. And what I mean by that is simply, let me make you an example. So we look at a sheet, it asks an entrepreneur, tell us about yourself. This entrepreneur just simply says, one liner, hi, my name is Jabu, I love selling food. And then the second question is, what is it about your business that makes you different, or rather that makes it innovative? His answer then is, people love coming to buy quarters, and as a result, they don't want to stop coming. It doesn't make any sense to the intellectual who's on the other side, who's sifting through the shortlisting, and an entrepreneur like that is immediately ridiculed and put to the side. But that's the system that's put in place. But you look at that particular entrepreneur, when we dug deeper, we found that this particular individual is making about 42,000 Rand, 42% net profits, is doing about 38 to about 45,000 Rand per day, working out of a 6 meter by 4 meter shack or a zinc container out in the township selling bunny chows. Now, you then find that the numbers in and themselves are insane, because I don't even do 42% net profit myself as a formalized small business. But you then find that there's an economy that is at play. The large corporates want to participate in the development of these entrepreneurs, but there is no conceited effort in understanding what is the actual problem and the issue, and how do we talk to solutions that speak directly to that particular market.
Amazing. So, I mean, I think what, from a bystander's perspective, what we get to see about the townships very often is all media related stuff. It's stuff that you'll see in the news, and the townships have got a stigma to them. people don't really seem to understand that there's thriving economies. There's so much. There's a buzz of activity happening in here. And also corporates don't seem to understand that it's not an issue of simply throwing money at something. You need to really understand the intricacies of what makes this whole thing operate and break it down, disseminate everything, and understand how to properly structure it to get it going. Because I think there's something very unique about our townships in South Africa. I think they've got a story to tell. I think they've got a global story to tell that the world will want to hear. But we just don't seem to have people that want to go in there. Similarly, and maybe you can just pick up on this a little bit. Definitely here, talking to some of the guys over here, like you'll have guys that will go that will start to become really successful in a township. Instead of staying in that township, what they want to do is they want to move into the burbs. They want to go and they want to become part of this whole, this whole Western culture, whatever the case is, and they actually walk away from where they are. So that money is not staying necessarily in the townships, and it's not going back into rebuilding. I mean, is there any merit in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely true. I mean, I'll link that up to my story, and I'll tie it into some of what we know. I mean, I'll look at myself. I mean, for the biggest part, the that has always been ingrained is to live. If you want to live a good life, then a good life looks like a corner office in Sandton with a view. A good life is living in Hyde Park or Rosebank or whatsoever. A good life is everything but being in the township, ideally. Now, the tipping point in our business was when 7 years in, having gone through the ups and downs, and when one to realize that actually one has a story to tell. Because, starting out, we're in the printing space, and I mean, the printing space is filled up with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, whether you've got the machines or you don't. There's at least 1,000, 10,000 other people in a town or a suburb that do that offer that service. But then what became a differentiator for us, or rather in my company when it was starting out, was we started sharing the story, and people wanted to hear more and more of the story. And that's mostly what you pick up now. I mean, let me throw in something that's a little bit controversial. In some of the corporate that we work with, I remember talking to one gentleman, and he made a statement, and he said, "You know what? We want insights. We want insights about the township." And I mean, I looked at him and I thought to myself, "But what do you mean? What do you mean you want insights about the township?" Because, and he said, "Well, to be honest, we want them from a Black individual." Well, I said, "But you running an organization that has got a good 20 plus Black individuals working with you amongst many others." And he shared something, and he said, the truth at the end of the day is that they've been far removed from the actual townships, and they might not even be able to give us that actual raw essence of what is actually happening. Because when we're engaging them, they're actually telling us about Rosebank and Hyde Park, and that's not what we really want to know. So they've been accustomed to that lifestyle. And that's almost when you want to detach yourself from the situation and the environment, is that you adapt to a new culture and your new mindset and your new lifestyle. There's never been anything wrong with anyone moving to Sandton or Centurion or Century City down in Cape Town or whatever the case. But I think that one loses so much when they come from that environment and automatically want to detach. Then your story becomes convoluted or diluted or whatsoever the case, and you lose the essence of who you are or your bargaining tool when you want to compete on a global scale. Because we've heard the US story, we've heard the China story, we've heard the Germany story. The amazing story that is yet to come is a South African story. So if you're someone from Benoni, own that Benoni story. If you're from someone from Klerksdorp, if you're from someone from Camps Bay, from Khayelitsha, Gugulethu, to own who you are and carry that into your value proposition, whether you're going in for an interview or for a job. Because truth be, that is the one thing that is going to set you apart from everybody else, is being able, your innate ability to own your own story.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. Tell me, what does the day in the life of Bulelani look like? Because I know the last time you were here in Cape Town, I got a call from your PA. She was like, "Are you available for a meeting at 6 in the morning?" I was like, "What? 6 in the morning?" So I mean, so I just want to understand, like, what does a day in the life of Bulelani look like, man?
Sure, but well, obviously now it's a lot of Zoom meetings and online presentations and confined into my house. But I think my ordinary day outside of COVID is chassis meetings, man. Meetings, workshops, doing talks, a lot of flying. I think flying, I'm up to my neck in flying, but I think for me, it's been a growing progress. And what I mean by that is growing to do what I actually love,
Yeah.
which is going out there, going into the townships and actually doing genuine impact work.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's not just tick box, but we're able to give the client what they're looking for, but also add a little bit more that goes to impacting the entrepreneur themselves. So it's a lot of work. I mean, I think my average day is a good 14 to about 16 hours a day. I try to push it lower, but I'm so used to it now.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying, to be honest, there's a big part of me that enjoys the lockdown just a little bit because I'm restrained. I don't need to necessarily go anywhere. So I've got quite a bit of this buffer time, which would necessarily be on the road or on a flight. And I'm here working on me and
Fantastic, fantastic. I mean, so you would have, you would have started from like humble beginnings, eh? Just take us a little bit through how you actually like learned how to play in the entrepreneur space yourself.
so, I mean, sure. I mean, so I started a good, 15, 16 years, this year, 2020, 16 years ago. Started off in my mother's garage. My highest grade at the time was grade 9. Didn't have any knowledge of entrepreneurship or any financial support. I negotiated with my mother to allow me to utilize half the garage. In any case, there wasn't any car in the garage. It was user storage. So I was sharing half the garage with pots, pans, old wardrobes, and so on and so forth. Um, begrudgingly, she allowed me to use it. Then the biggest challenge of them all came, and it's that I needed computers, I needed resources in order to start this internet cafe. There I was going around looking for these resources. Luckily, at the time, my back opposite neighbors they were renovating their house. So I asked them for their wardrobe doors so that I could use them as tabletops. There was a local supermarket brand at the time. It's no longer in business, but it was called Score. I went to the manager, he gave me crates. I used those as stands for the tabletops. And a friend of mine, Zintle, gave me some money for to buy material to use as tablecloths. A friend of mine, Marcus, gave me his Pentium 1 computer. My brothers gave me his Pentium 1 computer and a printer. I remember that printer was an HP 610 inkjet. It was pretty cool. And I mean, I got all these resources, but I only had one computer working. So I had more screens than I had actual towers of CPUs that were working at the time. So I decided then to start running this internet cafe. But then we didn't have internet, and so it was an internet cafe. But the strange thing is there was no internet and there was nothing cafe about it. We had to wait a good 24 months to just get a fax line in, and a further couple of months to get Telkom to come in and install what they called ADSL. But because I had this insatiable desire to provide internet and connectivity, we then outsourced the services of a company called Hocha Connect back in the time. So similar to the dongles that everyone is carrying around today. So they were the first, and we decided to keep the costs market related. So we're being hammered. People were paying an average cost for the service, but every month we're on a 3,000 to 4,000 rand deficit. And I remember when we started, on the first day that we opened up our doors, we made about 5 rand. And I was excited, right? Because I'm thinking then it's going to grow, whether in small increments or whatsoever, it's going to keep growing, 50 cents, 1 rand, whatsoever. The next day it dropped down to 2 rand 50. The day after that, 1 rand. Then we spent a good 4 days without any customers. And how the office was set up, or rather the shop was set up, it was on a curve, right? Not even on the main road, but on the street that it was on the curve. So our house was on the corner. So you could almost see people coming from a distance. And you kind of get excited thinking people are coming into the shop. And majority of them were either coming in to ask for directions, and the other group was walking past. So you had a very few amount of people that came in to actually utilize our internet services that we didn't even have at the time. And as a couple of months that went by, a friend of mine gave me his 3-in-1 printer, a friend of mine called Marcus. But the problem with the 3-in-1 printer is that he didn't know how to use the photocopy settings, nor did I. So whenever we created a photocopy, it photocopied half the page. So now one had to get into the juggling activity of explaining to customers how no one likes reading long things. Let's just photocopy half your document. So I mean, anything to survive, right? So we did that. The business ran. We started to grow. 7 years in, I guess that was the point where I hit my tipping point. And what I mean by my tipping point is 7 years in, I wanted to give up because, we're making anything between 180 to about 350 to 390 Rand per month. And it was a big problem because we're not making any money. And I remember deciding on that day that, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to continue. But I think another thing that also inspired me that that resonated with me till today was watching an advert, and this advert showed Sandton, and it showed Sandton as a bush, and I think the storyline was 40 or 50 years ago, Sandton was just a bush, but today it's the richest square mile in Africa. And I think from that particular advert, I started to build my story around being proudly Township. Then we started to grow and telling our story and growing into being a brokerage, which was supported by a good friend of mine, a gentleman who's now today a good friend of mine, Philip Halgrain, an amazing gent, an amazing white dude. And the reason why I mention his race is because at that time I didn't even think I would have anyone of any individual, most importantly of any race, who would help me without even knowing me. But I remember driving past the shop and impulsively stopping and saying, you know what, I'm going to stop here, tell these guys I want to resell their products. They were a printing company, they had machinery and equipment, and that's all I wanted. But immediately after I told him that, he took me to the back and started teaching me on the day about pricing, how they work. And then he said to me, if you are interested about the printing space, I will help you at no cost. Come in every Tuesday and Thursday. I was there every Tuesday and Thursday, full day, working, learning. And over time, he became a good friend of mine. He started referring business my way. He showed me where the machines were bought, showed me all the rigs, and we then started to grow the business from there. So from there, when he closed down and he moved all the way back down to Bulelani, we continued. He referred some of his business to us. We took over some of his staff members. We then grew from there. We then started to get our own clients in. And yeah, so today we occupy 380 office and production space out in Tembisa. So still in the township, but doing all the work with multinational and national organizations. So that's the story. So I think out of that, then T started about 5 years ago, and we've been growing strong ever since then.
Amazing, eh? It just speaks so loudly to how important it is to have relationships, right? And to build and strengthen relationships with people, because you never know where those relationships are going to take you. You never know where that journey is going to set you off on. It's really, really encouraging to know that that you don't have to walk these roads alone. That we have people that are prepared to walk these journeys with us. Just a quick one. I mean, what are you guys currently doing at the moment to sort of address and understand what's going on in townships from an entrepreneurial space? I think you alluded at some stage, and we were just chatting yesterday to a document that you're busy with. Can you just give us a little bit more information about that?
So I think now, because of the COVID-19 crisis, what we've decided to do is just to get a better understanding of what the entrepreneurs themselves are going through in this time. And because we've been engaging with a few, and we've been getting complaints, and we've been picking up on a couple of snags that have been coming up. And then we've decided, and we've seen some of the impact reports that have also gone around, but we've saw it fit because we believe that it doesn't necessarily match entirely what the actual issues are on the ground, to come up with some sort of an impact and solution document that we probably put out to the ecosystem and also to the market, so that they can start carving out solutions that are aimed at addressing the impact to the entrepreneurs at this current moment. But the secondary thing from that we also want to then do is to come up with to really just to come up with a grant relief of some sort that would not be utilized as cash that goes into the entrepreneur's hands, but as cash that would go towards directly paying a need that they might have at that particular moment. So I think for us, those then become critical. But I think over and above that, we're doing the online workshopping, the what we call group sessions, which are live sessions that we are hosting via Facebook, because a large amount of the entrepreneurs we work with are on Facebook. And you can imagine, because of the market, they can't afford Instagram. A lot of them are not even on Twitter. So a vast majority of them are on Facebook as being the major connectivity platform. So I think in a nutshell, that's the basic stuff that we are working on to share, to really just create a platform for information, support, and counseling, strangely so.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, counseling is a big one at this time, because people are struggling, you know, and when you start to have battles of the mind and the heart, it becomes very difficult for you to achieve what you're trying to achieve, especially when you've got your hands tied behind your back. So I think counseling is a very important part of this entire process. Are you getting any sort of support from government?
I mean, in this time, no, not as an organization, no. But which is why I think for us, it was important, was initially going into the lockdown. We already started strategizing on a lot of things, but I think we had to hold ourselves back because we felt like we were reacting rather than responding. So we had to sit back and ride the wave. And I think we're in a better position now to even go out and lobby some of the corporate partners that we've worked with, because we're making the mistake of engaging them, but not even understanding what was actually going on. So we're in a better suited position now to engage on something that won't just be for COVID, but will also then become a long-term online digital solution as part of our digital strategy to offer support. But I think historically, it's been difficult to get to lobby government to come in and work. I think I mentioned this. Sorry, that, you know, I mean, I served as an NDP ambassador, youth ambassador in the presidency, reporting previously to Minister Jeff Hadebe, who then was preceded by Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. So, I mean, I know quite a number of the ministers, we share platforms, but whether it's an element of ignorance or tardiness or really non-interest from them, it is what it is at the end of the day. But we've picked up support from a government agency, Brand South Africa, which supports some of our initiatives as non-monetary support, but they really support us in terms of access. And I really think that goes a long way, because majority of our conversation with, for instance, the Department of Small Business has always been, we don't necessarily just need the funds, financial support from you, but we need to be able to champion programs together that we would then lobby the community, individuals, and even corporate South Africa to support. And in the most part, that's all entrepreneurs will need, because you give them money. And, you know, most of the time when an entrepreneur says that they need money to start or to even run their business, they find that it's a failure to articulate what the actual need is. Then when you're able to sit down with an entrepreneur and unpack what the problem is, you find that they actually need market access, they need support, they need branding and marketing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, that's you hit the nail on the head, because a lot of the times we think money is going to address the problems, and you can throw money at a wall all day long. It doesn't mean it's going to stick. It's so important that we have these tools that are in place, like you said, access to market, marketing strategies, sales strategies, etc., packaging, and all that kind of stuff, because that's what generates money. And also, do you really want to get yourself into a situation where you start your business on the back foot in a loan? It's questionable. What is like? What does your ideal partner look like? Somebody that wanted to like support and get involved with you, and what sort of support would you need?
So I think for us, we looked at, maybe let me start with what the type of maybe let me look at. I wanted to start with what type of partner, but maybe let me start with the first. I think what we're looking for ideally, and this forms part of our growth strategy, and just to map it out. So we run these workshops across the country. We workshop anything between 7 to 10,000 entrepreneurs and every year. And of those 7 to 10,000 entrepreneurs, a good 85% of them already are running registered businesses. They've been operating for 2 years. They're employing anything between 3 to about 5 employees. And ideally for us, what we've picked up from the data is that, and this then goes back to the previous question that you were asking, is that we realize that the 10 to 7 to 10,000 entrepreneurs who are workshopping, that's the market. Yeah. They're buying their clothes from somewhere, they're buying their paper, their ink, their airtime, their internet. And what we almost want to do now through a digital platform that we already have the prototype for, but we need to now start building, is we want to then start to address that, to say, well, let's start to formulate this as a market. Yeah. And let's start to regionalize the support for these entrepreneurs, because majority of the time you have people that want to support entrepreneurs, but they don't know where to find them. So we want to create a platform that will provide online mentorship, that will provide digital support, learning content, that will also then be able to help the entrepreneurs identify agencies that they want to work with, and we are able to go out there and help them champion in the support for those entrepreneurs. So ideally, the type of partners that we're looking for is corporate partners that will see the value in working with us and going out into 20 townships a year, physically impacting entrepreneurs, but also going digitally and impacting and providing real-time support for entrepreneurs. And I think the beauty of it is coming up with bespoke solutions and products as well, which is what we've also then done with some of our other partners, where they're not necessarily coming on the ground with us, but they support us in on the ground initiatives. But we've also then dug deep into their enterprise development and transformation within their corporatization to make sure that they are also compliant and they're also creating as much impact as possible. So I mean, we're looking for, I think for me, what I've always looked for in a partner is someone that will work with 360. And what I mean by that, play the long game. That the partnership doesn't necessarily need to be limited to money, but the partnership needs to be one that's beneficial. Like for instance, with the platform, we're going to need mentors. You know, there are people on the platform that are professionals, either in cleaning or mechanics or whatsoever, that are able to share knowledge with entrepreneurs who are in those respective industries, so that they can learn about how to navigate those particular spaces. So that's the type of support that we're looking at, so that we can grow and create more sustainable impact.
Amazing stuff, man. Absolutely amazing stuff, Bulelani. What do you have a message for the private sector, and do you have a message for entrepreneurs in South Africa? I know they're two separate things, but do you have a message for both?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's, let's keep the entrepreneur at the center of enterprise and supply development, and let's be true to that. I think for me, one of the biggest things that have always come up is anytime I have been approached by a corporate or an individual that wanted to create an impact, that wanted to create products or solutions or services for the township, my biggest question has always been around value. How does this benefit the entrepreneurs? And you find seldom there is no real benefit. It's really just a capitalist strategy that one wants to utilize, and then they want to parade it as impact. And there's been anything wrong with that. And I've always said to corporates, bring the support. You might not necessarily be coming to bring money or coming to bring jobs. That's fine. But if you are going to be running an initiative in the township, the least that you could do is procure services from the local based entrepreneurs instead of outsourcing. So you're going to bring the learning, but you're also going to bring the catering, bring the security, bring the internet, and bring the transportation. I think that model needs to change. You need to be able to leave something on the table where you are able to also show that you what you are training is what you are also then practicing. And I think that if we're able to do that, then it goes a long way. But it just to the entrepreneur, starting is very easy, but I think these times are showing us that being consistent, it becomes critical at this particular moment with the trying times. And I think being consistent to your personal development, being consistent to breeding the team culture through SMSs, WhatsApps, or video calls, if you're able to afford that in your business, so that when you get back up, you're able to have a team that is going to help you in the development and growth of your business, because you can't do it alone.
Powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. Super powerful. You know, I just want to touch on something that you said there, because it's pertinent, and it's stuff that we've picked up on over the last couple of weeks, is that, you know, if you want to go into a community and you want to help the community, don't outsource stuff and bring it into the communities, because you're not benefiting those. And number one, the stuff that you want to bring into the community to assist, is it actually stuff that the community wants or needs? Yeah. And second of all, make sure that the community is going to benefit from it, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to stimulate growth in these communities, and it really doesn't help bringing stuff from the outside in. So I love that message. I think it's incredibly powerful. Bulelani, how do guys get in touch with you, man?
It's simple. So, I mean, I'll give up my email address actually. So it's bulelani at bulelani.co.za. But to anyone who's interested really in understanding more about what T is and what we do, it's simple. It's simply join us for T.E.A. On any social media platform, hashtag join us for T. You'll get a long list of our activity grid, where we've been, what we do, videos, content, and we are out there on the social media streets every day, educating. And you could also look up on my personal face pages, Bulelani Balabala. You'll see a lot of content about entrepreneurship. And then I think from that point, we can then interact and see how we could potentially collaborate and go out there and create impact.
Beautiful stuff, man. Thank you so much for joining us, my friend. I wish you nothing but the best, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much, but thank you.
Take it easy, brother. Take it easy.